You're damn right, everybody. HooperCast movie hour on this fine Wednesday, Friday time space that we're in. Hi, Dustin.
Hi, Hooper.
Welcome to the show.
They could be listening to it on another day other than Wednesday or Friday.
Whenever they want. That's up to them. I have no control. We just set them up and we set them free.
Right. Do what you want.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It's the HooperCast movie hour. We are on YouTube and Facebook as well. If you're listening on iTunes, if you're watching the show on any of the visual mediums, we have the podcast audio on iTunes, Stitcher, RadioPublic, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anywhere you could get a podcast, that's where we are. And also some little bonus goodies in there, like the HooperCast Daily show, sort of. It's not really daily, but it's pretty regular. It's like early week daily.
Right, sure.
And then after we do the hour, I just don't do anymore. Yeah. Right. So anyway, we did one last night. Me and Ian got on, and we counted down the top 5 highest paid TV hosts.
Oh, cool.
Of this past year. So if you want,
who's number one?
Well,
no, you have to listen to it.
Yeah, you got to listen to it. I'll tell you later, Dustin.
Okay.
It was a good, or you can
listen.
You know
what? I'll just go listen to it.
Yeah. So let's talk about some movies for roughly an hour, Dustin. How's that sound?
That sounds good.
Okay. Before we get into actual movies, do you want to run through the weekend box office real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sweet. Okay. So looking at Box Office Mojo, we got this past weekend was Thanksgiving, of course. And so over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, we had a couple of movies debut, and they debuted well. Well, yes. 2 of them did.
Yeah. Right.
So the ones I'm talking about doing well are Ralph Breaks the Internet, which debuted at number 1. This is, of course, Disney sequel to Wreck-It Ralph. Ralph brought in $56 million.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah. Total gross of $84 million.
Yeah. So that includes the foreign market.
The total gross includes the foreign market now?
Yep.
Weird.
I think so.
I feel like that. Hold on a second. Let me click on that.
Is it not?
It just feels like, no, see, foreign. No, foreign's on the, worldwide it's made 132.
Yeah, you're right.
Do you think it might be, you know what? They're not counting Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it probably came out on Thanksgiving.
Yep.
Proper. So,
gotcha.
So same for number 2, Creed 2, $35 million weekend gross, but a total gross of $56 million. That one was made, and that's even better for them because in one weekend they outdid their budget because that budget's only $50 million.
Yep.
Wreck-It Ralph's at 175, and Creed is not on the foreign market right now. It looks like. Yeah. Wonder maybe it won't play too well in Russia.
Yeah, it might not.
You got The Grinch falling to number 3 from number 2 from last week. Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald fell all the way to number 4 from number 1. It's still total grossed only at $116 million with a budget of $200 million, but worldwide it's $442. There will be another one, unfortunately.
Yep.
And of course, Robin Hood debuting at number 7 made $9 million. Oh my God, that $100 million budget?
Yeah.
What were they thinking?
I have no idea, man.
Oh my God.
That's a big mistake.
Oh, someone's getting fired.
Yep.
Bad
move.
As Will Ferrell would say in one of his Saturday Night Live skits, I should fire you and burn down your freaking house. Someone's getting fired hard over that.
Yep. Big time.
Yikes. Okay. Yep. Well, woo. Goodness gracious. You know what's doing better, though, is just because this is within my view, Green Book was number 22 last week.
Yeah.
And now it's up at number 9.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
That is good. You know what I think is going to be interesting is I want to watch The Grinch and see what it does because it's so weird because it was released I
thought you meant you want to watch the film.
I don't want to watch the film. I probably will, but I don't want to. The Grinch itself was released 3 weeks ago. And so what has happened is it's kind of hit its stride, right? Like typically you would say, okay, it's done making money. But it's weird. Like in a normal scenario, by the third week, like the wave is crashed and you're kind of coasting towards the shore. But what is weird about this is because it's such a Christmas movie and that it's so ingrained in the culture.
Yep.
I'm interested to see if it will bump back up.
That's crazy to me. Yeah, because week 3, it made almost as much as Creed on its opening weekend.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's just weird because it did have a 21% drop. I'll give it that, but I wonder if that drop will decrease.
Yeah.
Or if it will actually increase. I don't know if it'll die or if it won't die. Now, I don't think we're going to have a weekend like, say, the weekend before Christmas where this thing makes another $30 million. I doubt that. But I'm curious to see what its legs are as we get closer to Christmas Day.
Yeah. Also in this list is just worth noting is Widows at number 8. Yeah, number 8.
Number 8. Yeah.
So total of $25 million with a $42 million budget. So that is the weekend box office.
Yep.
What I did not actually pull up that I need to pull up is what could possibly take their place this weekend. If we head on over to the Fandango, we got stuff that's playing right now in theaters. We've got The Possession of Hannah Grace. Yep. Oh, great. Another one of these.
Yeah.
Anna and the Apocalypse.
That's a limited release.
Yeah, what the heck are these movies?
Anna and the Apocalypse is a zombie romantic comedy musical.
Oh, great.
It's actually, everything I've heard is that it's actually really good.
Oh, okay.
But it's one of those indie movies that will probably have a cult following later.
Yeah. Jeez. Okay. Yeah. I don't know any of these films. So everything opening this weekend is esoteric. So,
yeah.
Oh boy. If you want to go see Head Full of Money with Nick Nolte.
You don't, though. You don't.
One of the Dillon brothers.
Right.
Looks like Matt Dillon from here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then really it's not until December 12th that we get another big nationwide release, which is Once Upon a Deadpool. I'm not sure how that's going to do. That's a really weird one. Being a re-release of a movie from this year. And then the following week, Mortal Engines. I just don't know what to think about that. And Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse will probably take that weekend.
I am interested in Once Upon a Deadpool. I had no idea this thing was coming out.
It's a weird idea, but we'll see what happens.
This is weird, though. The synopsis is the synopsis of Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
That's weird.
So it is Deadpool 2.
Oh.
Once Upon a Deadpool is a re-release of Deadpool that's been edited to be PG-13. And they've added, I think, like bookend scenes to it with Deadpool, like explaining that this is a re-release and also he's telling the story of Deadpool 2 to Fred Savage in a bed, just like The Princess Bride. So they filmed new scenes with Fred Savage and Deadpool, like bookending the movie.
So I wonder if that would actually improve the quality of Deadpool 2.
Who knows? I didn't see Deadpool 2. I know you did.
Oh yeah, just that I have no thoughts on it really, except for I was disappointed. Okay. I didn't really like it that much.
Yeah, gotcha.
I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just too many like joke attempts or
sure.
I don't know. It just felt really forced and kind of unnecessary. There's a few funny parts in it, as any decent film is going to have. But just considering everything it had going for it, it just was kind of disappointing. I just sat there, and after a while, I was like, "Oh, great, okay, this is what I was afraid of." So,
right.
Yeah, and there's just a ton of jokes and stuff that just shouldn't have been. It felt like Judd Apatow extended improv scenes at some point. I was like, okay, why is this in here? Like, is this am I in the deleted scenes?
Right.
I could have sworn I was watching the actual film.
Right.
Anyway, I didn't like that bull too. That's a bad sign. So
I gotcha.
Yeah, so maybe this was like a preemptive, like, hey, we're just gonna fix this up, punch it up a little bit.
Right. Sure.
Anyway, all right. Well, that's what's in theaters now and making money in theaters now. There's not really any film news to speak of, Dustin.
Yeah. It's been a slow week.
The only things I would briefly want to mention, if you wanted to briefly just, I feel like it's relevant. We should mention that Steven Hillenberg just died.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Tuesday?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah, the creator of SpongeBob SquarePants, and I don't know what the cause was. Did you?
Yeah, he was diagnosed last year with ALS.
Man!
So it's been a long battle for him. I think it's been a year and a half or so since the diagnosis. So, or at least since the diagnosis was made public. So yeah, it's been a battle.
Jeez. He was 57.
Yeah, he was young, and I will say, SpongeBob SquarePants was the biggest source of laughter for me as a kid in middle school. Like, that was my go-to show, and even as I aged up, it was something I kept going back to. When I read about it yesterday, I actually went back and watched a few episodes of SpongeBob. They're on Amazon Prime, the first few seasons. So I went back and watched the pilot and the next 2 episodes, I think. And they're so good. They hold up so well. The animation is beautiful. Of course, these are, HD, it's streaming. It's just a beautiful transfer. And I can't say enough good things about that product. He stepped down after the first SpongeBob movie, and that's when there was a definite tonal shift, and that has it continued that way for a little while. And then Steven Hillenberg actually came back to help with SpongeBob, Sponge Out of Water, the second film. And then I believe they're working on a third film that he was somewhat involved in. So his touch to that show definitely made it better. And when he was not working on it, it was a different show. So those first 3 seasons, especially, they hold up. I still say that it was some of the best comedy writing on TV at the time. And I would say it's the best children's comedy ever made.
Wow.
I still think that is the funniest show that has ever been directed at kids. And I will stand by that to my dying breath. So what he created, yes, it's become, an oversaturated marketing thing. But those first 3 seasons are artistic, full of vision, and, like I said, just the funniest thing on TV at the time, and huge praise. And so Steven Hillenberg's a huge part of my life, my childhood, and yeah, so he'll definitely be missed, and his touch from SpongeBob has been missed, and yeah,
boy,
sad times. Yeah.
Well, God rest Steven Hillenberg, 57 years old, died on Tuesday of this week.
Yeah.
Happier potentially news.
Yeah.
But definitely happier than death.
Sure.
The Lion King trailer dropped.
Yeah.
We did not get any Avengers 4 trailer over the Thanksgiving weekend, but Thanksgiving Day we did get the trailer to the live action 2019 Disney film, remake of The Lion King, directed by Jon Favreau, who also did the live action Jungle Book that people, was good. I liked.
Yeah.
So this trailer comes out, and it's a lot of shot for shot, recreations. It's just how the animals look photoreal, and but They gave us the cast list, which we already knew, but now like the general public knows it.
Right.
And I found myself feeling like, I got goosebumps when I heard James Earl Jones talk. But then I wondered, is this audio from the original trailer that I'm hearing, or is this his new audio?
He sounded a little older.
Yeah.
Maybe that was me reading into it, but I feel like this is new stuff.
Sure, I would hope so.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I don't know why. Anyway. So we talked before how this is another film that goes into the unnecessary category.
Yeah. Yeah.
That being said, this trailer did make me excited to see the film. I just feel like it will still end up being one of those things where, okay, this is cool and everything, but like half the reason this is cool is because they're retreading territory that they know people like.
Right.
And just sort of giving it back to them in a different way.
Yeah. If you follow me on Twitter, at Dustin Weldon on Twitter, if you follow, that was a shameless plug. I'm sorry. So if you do follow me, you saw my reaction to this. I agree with you. This is unnecessary. It is. I just don't know what they can add or what they can do better. And I know they've announced now that there are new characters in the film. And I assume that that's probably so that they can pad the runtime. I think The Lion King's like maybe an hour and a half, if even. And, I'm assuming this is going to be like one of those 2-hour kind of deals. And so they're going to, whatever, pad it out with some new characters and whatever. But, my thing is like, you told the perfect story before without them. So why add them now? Like what would they add to this? And so I'm just really worried about it, honestly. I just think it's going to be a waste of time. And I posted an image on Twitter. It's this big, basically side-by-side comparison of like a shot from the trailer and a shot from the original Lion King film. And when you look at them side by side, you really see how much more emotionally impactful the animated version is. The compositions are things you can't get in live action, and the colors would read weird in live action. And so I'm just honestly, I'm just worried about it. Now, having said all that, I'm going to see the movie for sure. But I'm going to see it with trepidation, with my, expectations down at the bottom of the barrel, because at the end of the day, you told me the perfect story and now you're trying to tell it again, but different. That's a tall order. So we'll see.
Do we know who's voicing Scar?
Yes, it's Chiwetel Ejiofor.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Again, these roles are so synonymous to me with the original voice actors, that I think it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Like, I know Donald Glover is Simba, and you've got Seth Rogen and Billy Eichner as Timon and Pumbaa. And I just think like, when I hear Timon in my head, it's Nathan Lane. And so I think when you put Billy Eichner in it, I'm just I just don't think it's going to read for me. And that's my problem, right? Like, that's not the film's problem, because the film does what it is going to do, what it's going to do. And it's either going to be successful or not. But as the filmmaker, if I'm Jon Favreau, I'm going to say, look, I know that the audience, especially people of, like my age and your age and whatever, we're going to come in with these preconceived notions of like, we can hear that voice in our head. Yeah. Like if I were to just write dialogue for Timon and Pumbaa, I know I'm going to hear Nathan Lane and Ernie Sabella. Like, I know that's what I'm going to hear. And so coming in, it doesn't matter how good of a job Seth Rogen does. It's going to be hard for me to connect. And so at the end of the day, you judge each movie based on its own merits, but you have to understand that your audience is going to come in with those expectations. And so as a filmmaker, it's your job to sway me and sway me quick. And so it's like I said, it's just a tall order. And I think it can be done, but it's going to be tough.
Well, we'll have to just see.
Also, I hate that people are calling this live action because it's just animated.
Yeah, it's all computer animated. There's not any human characters.
Or are there?
That's the thing. Maybe Mowgli ran all the way to Africa.
That'd be great.
He missed the man village by 2,000 miles.
That'd be great.
All right.
Maybe like actual Nathan Lane will just show up in the middle of it.
Oh God, this is insane. This is crazy.
What's going on here?
Oh goodness, why am I here?
Pumbaa, we're in the wrong movie.
Oh. Everything turns into dice. Oh, these animals everywhere.
Oh man, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just have dice, just like where am I?
I'll tell you this though, Disney could have saved a lot of money and just got those original voice actors to just do a table read, film the table read, put that out as the movie, call it live action Lion King. End of day, great. I would be on board.
Yeah, like just put them all in like an actual recording, like a soundproof like round table.
Right. Exactly.
Like
and in costume.
And shit,
right. So like Jeremy Irons with like a mane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm down.
Just do it like Rango, where you have them all mic'd and then like,
yes.
Very basic versions of the costumes and they actually block the whole film.
Correct. That'd be great.
I'd watch that.
They should have just done like an adaptation of the Broadway musical so that all the actors were in costumes or whatever they are.
Well, we'll have to see with Lion King.
Yeah,
we just don't know yet.
We'll see what happens.
All right, let's get into some movie talk.
Let's do it.
Let me bring something up relatively briefly that I watched over the weekend.
Do it.
It was we were browsing Netflix. I was forced to choose between two different Christmas movies. So, of course, the thing signed itself out. So I picked The Christmas Chronicles because it stars Kurt Russell as Santa Claus.
Yes.
So this is what we watched. And I liked this movie.
Oh, sweet.
I liked it a lot. It's the story, basically, it's a pretty generic story. That's these two kids, I'm assuming played by Darby Camp and Judah Lewis, are their moms, their dad's dead and their mom works a lot and stuff. And so then they don't get along and the brother's on like this, path towards a life of crime and his sister just wants Santa Claus to says, okay. And so, it's pretty basic plot wise, but what I like about this movie is, so they basically, what do? They inadvertently, they end up seeing Santa and actually getting into his sleigh. And then through the course of actually ending up going up in the air with him by accident and startling him and things get dropped and other things happen. They have to go get a couple of things to fix the thing so that they can finish Christmas basically.
Sure.
And along the way, sort of figure out who they're who they're meant to be, just have character arcs.
Sure. Right.
And Spirit of Christmas. So the plot is very generic. The plot is not what's interesting about this movie. What's interesting about this movie is Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell performs. Okay.
Oh, sweet.
He's kind of like, if it reminds me a little bit of Ego when he from a little bit, but really he's just being charming Kurt Russell, who's very much, he's not like this crass mall Santa, and he's not like this saccharine, Robin Williams-esque Santa either. He's like he's very much like the Santa Claus. There's just a couple of common misconceptions. Like he's annoyed that he constantly gets portrayed as a big fat guy because he's like, I'm not that fat. And, and that, let's see, he just, it's hard for me to explain it, but I actually really liked their characterization of Santa Claus in this film. I just liked that he had a job to. I liked the way they explain how he does it. Like Santa Claus very visibly travels through like portals to get across the world, which I thought was cool that they actually like took the time to set up some sort of like science fiction rules for how he operates. His Santa bag is pretty much like a giant like Hermione Granger bag full of presents, but it's not just that. It's pretty much a portal back to the workshop where they're just throwing presents on a pile and he just reaches in there and gets more of them. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. So, cool. And the effects are not bad. And so I like the Christmas Chronicles. As far as like, Christmas movies go, Netflix Christmas movies. I liked it a great deal. I had I enjoyed it. There's a few schmaltzy lines in there where you're like, oh, come on, this is stupid. And like I said, the structure is very formulaic, but Kurt Russell makes the film worth watching. And their actual treatment of Santa Claus and the whole mythology of the North Pole and Christmas is feels fresh and different from the norm, and interesting and a bit more realistic. I liked it. I recommend people see this. It's a Netflix film. It's on Netflix right now. Go watch it. It's about an hour and a half of your time. I liked this movie.
Sweet.
I would watch it again.
Okay.
So
cool.
In terms of a star rating, it's 3.5. It's not shooting that high,
Sure.
But it's not just some generic. It's fine. It's like, this is enjoyable. This is this is not like, especially if you're you and your wife are trying to find something to watch and maybe you're sick of a bunch of like kind of romantically skewed holiday films. This is one that I enjoyed.
Okay.
And I must say I enjoyed it very much. So,
cool.
I don't know.
Well, that's good to know. No, the wife and I saw that on Netflix recently.
And you saw it? That's right.
No, we didn't see it.
Oh.
We saw that it was on Netflix and then decided just to watch that closer to Christmas.
Oh, well, I'm curious to hear your thoughts because I enjoyed this film.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, this is. I expected this just to be kind of dumb, and I was like kind of afraid to watch Kurt Russell. But then I was right before the film was kind of getting started, like during the credits or something. I was like, no, he's on a roll right now. He doesn't have to take this part. So
right, exactly.
So I didn't know if maybe he had some sort of deal with Netflix where this was part of what they wanted him to do or whatnot. But I thought like, well, Kurt Russell isn't hard up for roles, so this can't be just a dumb Santa role.
Yep.
So I just like that Santa Claus is I don't know, he's a pretty practical Santa Claus, but he's still very much like the Santa Claus. Like he's not some jaded Santa. He's like this. It's very much true to the character of Santa Claus, while not just being like, oh, everything's cool.
Right, sure.
He's positive, but he's not he's not a naive dum.
Gotcha.
I appreciate that quite a bit.
Sweet.
I must say. So yeah, just want to mention the Christmas Chronicles.
Cool.
For you there. All right.
Check it out.
Let's get into some other couple other movies.
Okay.
Which one do you want to talk about first?
Let's talk about Widows first.
All right, Widows.
So, I promised you guys last week we were going to talk about Widows and Front Runner. So, yeah, we'll talk about Widows first. Widows is currently sitting at a 91 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yes.
It is. Let me back up and tell you a little bit about it. Right. So it's directed by Steve McQueen, who you would know from 12 Years a Slave or Shame. Written by Steve McQueen and Gillian Flynn, who did Gone Girl, and wrote the original novel that this is based on. It stars Viola Davis, Michelle Rodriguez, Liam Neeson, John Bernthal, Robert Duvall, Colin Farrell. It's kind of got like a who's who of great actors.
Yeah.
And so when I saw the cast list and I saw the plot, I was in. So the plot is about a group of widows, a group of women led by Viola Davis, whose husbands are all criminals together, and they're performing this heist at the beginning of the movie, and they are killed. Very first scene in the movie, so not a spoiler. Like, this is the premise of the movie.
Yeah.
And they're killed, and so that obviously leaves behind some widows, and they've got their own little problems. Viola Davis is the first to sort of encounter one of these problems in the form of the man who was robbed from by her husband, Liam Neeson. The man who Liam Neeson robbed from says, "Hey, I need my money back, or I'm going to kill you. You got 1 month."
Is that Brian Tyree Henry?
Yeah. And so, yep, exactly. And so Viola Davis is now in this position to come up with a lot of money in not a lot of time. So she decides that if she can get the other ladies whose husbands were killed, who worked with her husband, that maybe they can pull a heist of their own. It's a good premise. Like, that's a premise that I'm like, okay, I'm on board. Now, I am not going to give this a very favorable review. I guess I'll start with this. I'll give it like 3 stars, right? Like, it's okay, I guess. But really, this probably should be down to maybe like 2 or 2.5. But the filmmaking and like the performances are actually really solid. It's just it's the story. It's the way that it unfolds. Like I said, great premise, not a good actual story. The bulk of the problem lies in characterization. You've got 3 ladies who are all somewhat complicit in their husband's activities by looking the other way. Morally, they're not upright. So it's not a huge stretch to say, okay, they would, engage in some criminal activities of their own if the situation were to present itself. So that's not the problem. The problem is you have to give me a good reason, a good goal, right? Viola Davis has a good reason. Come up with the money or you're dead. The other 2 girls, and then consequently, there's a 4th woman that comes into the picture. She's in the movie, but she doesn't really connect to their storyline until like the end of the 2nd act, maybe the beginning of the 3rd. So the other 3 ladies in this film, their motivation is a little weak. Now, like I said, again, it's not that I have a problem believing that these ladies would do this. It's that when we talk about like story structure and getting characters moving, there has to be a good inciting incident to push them forward into this. Their husbands are dead. Now there has to be a good reason for them to go. And if Viola Davis just says, "Hey, I need your help," that's not a good enough reason. They've got to do it for something personal, some sort of whatever, like, hey, I want freedom, or I want, whatever. Like, they have to have a goal. I talk about this when I talk about horror movies. Like, survival is not a goal. But the bottom line here is I felt like, Viola Davis aside, the other ladies had less motivation to actually do what the movie's about. And so that was a little disappointing because I think what this could have been is a really good, for lack of a better term, like anything you can do, we can do better kind of story. And yet, they don't feel like full characters. They feel like they've all got like a little stereotype or like one little thing that makes them unique, right? Like Michelle Rodriguez is like, I have a store where I sell clothes. Okay, but we don't know anything else about you. And that's what we know. So, all that to say, there's a few sort of parallel like B stories and a C story that kind of get tied up together towards the end. All paths converge, kind of a thing. But at the end of the day, for me, it all was the characterization of these women. I felt like the way they were written, again, not the way they were performed, the way they were written was weak, and I'll say this too, Viola Davis, she's great. Her husband is played by Liam Neeson. He's great. And that goes without saying for the both of them. But you have like these flashback scenes where she's kind of like remembering him as he was, and they're presenting him as, this, super perfect husband, like just, whatever. Like maybe it could be argued this is the way she sees him or whatever, but it doesn't feel real. It feels dreamlike. And these two actors together don't have chemistry. And it's very rare that you hear me use that word because I don't get hung up on chemistry very much, but I don't feel like these two felt like a married couple. And so moving forward, if Viola Davis is kind of like, okay, I have to do this because I don't want to die, and also I have to do this because my husband was trying to provide for me, so now I'm gonna have to provide for myself, and whatever, and let me remember him as he was. He's this great gentleman. I loved him, blah blah blah. But I never really feel that, and so there's this disconnect for me in these characters. And I think it all just goes back to the fact that none of them feel real. They feel one-dimensional and flat, and none of them feel complex or actually alive. The one that comes closest is actually not Viola Davis. It is Elizabeth Debicki is her name. I have to look that up. Elizabeth Debicki. I don't really know her from anything other than Guardians of the Galaxy 2. She was Aisha in that. Like,
oh, that was her?
See her in all gold, yeah. And so she's a relative newcomer, I would call her. And she is the closest here. Her character is given the most layers. So again, great performance, but that specific character had the most complex story and so felt the most real, and then the lady who comes in sort of at the end feels the most cardboard, because all she does is she can run fast, and so like that's the only thing about her. And so at the end of the day, a movie like this, Widows, has to be, it's a heist movie, right? So you think of like Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, these things really, really hinge on charismatic and fully fleshed out characters. These movies are often dialogue heavy, and often they talk about everything before you ever see them do it. And so these actors and actresses have to be on top of their game. They have to be given good parts, and they have to ooze charisma. And if they cannot do all of those things, then the heist itself is not actually fun to watch. So I'm going to give this 3 stars only for the technical proficiency. But bear in mind that for me, it probably is more like a 2 just because the story bothered me so much. But yeah, so that's that. I can completely understand why this has a 91 on Rotten Tomatoes. This is a movie that, I think a lot of people will like. But if you're anything like me, I feel like this is one that you should skip in theaters and only rent if you are a big fan of one of these actors. And don't rent it if you're a big fan of John Bernthal, because he's in like one scene of this movie. So regardless, yeah, that's Widows. It's okay at best.
Sweet. I don't have anything to add. I mean, that's That's as concise as it's going to get.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, 91, but audience put it at 60%.
Okay, well that makes me feel better. I think that, like I said, I can understand why certain people would really love this. But even if you're hoping this is like a big feminist kind of like, yeah, like women are awesome kind of a thing, it ain't that. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the final movie of the night.
Sure.
Right. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me,
this would be Front Runner.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So The Front Runner is the newest film by Jason Reitman. It stars Hugh Jackman, Vera Farmiga, of course, J.K. Simmons, and a whole host of other people. Yeah, The Front Runner, and a whole host of other people, including one of my favorite people, Bill Burr. And so,
oh yes,
I love Bill Burr. The Front Runner, is the story of Senator Gary Hart's presidential campaign in the late 80s. So it's based on a true story. This is one of the first times that the media was really scrutinizing politicians' personal lives, and the idea of how far is too far. Does the personal life of a presidential candidate actually really matter, or should we stick to policy and job performance and background only? And so what happens, I'm not going to spoil anything for you because obviously I don't want to do that. But what I will say is the story of Gary Hart is one where Gary is caught by the media with another woman, not his wife, and the snowball that begins rolling down the hill to become a huge avalanche on his campaign, and then what it kind of does personally as well as professionally for him. So yeah, again, great premise, right? Like this is the story of media coverage of an elected official, and how much does the public need to know about their elected officials? So good story, good premise. And so here's how I want to break this up. I actually want to compare this to another film. Okay. I'm going to compare this to Zodiac, and the which I think you and I both love.
I love Zodiac.
Zodiac is one of it's great. And I was gonna go hyperbole there, but I'm not gonna. Zodiac is great.
I was thinking like among my favorite movies, but I don't know if there's a list I would draw from. I'll say this: it's one of the most rewatchable, great films. Yeah, totally. And it's definitely one of David Fincher's best movies.
Absolutely. So I'm going to compare it to that, and I'll tell you why. The Front Runner has a great story that loses its narrative focus very early in the film. So this is not a film in which we experience everything through a POV character like Gary Hart. Like you might think we're going to watch him make a decision and the decision affect his life and, all of this kind of through his eyes. That's not how this movie is structured whatsoever. So I'm going to compare it to Zodiac. Zodiac also has what you might call like a dual protagonist. You've got your Jake Gyllenhaal and you got your Mark Ruffalo, and they're both on the trail of this killer. And so we, as the audience, are kind of invested in two storylines, and The Front Runner is sort of that same way. Now, I wouldn't say it's a dual protagonist film, but you're following several different storylines. So you might spend a few minutes with Hugh Jackman's Gary Hart, only to then jump over to the news outlet that's covering him and talking about what they're going to do to get the scoop on him and all this stuff. And this is information he's not privy to. So we're not seeing this through his eyes. This is a whole different scenario, or a whole different, like storyline. And so we're kind of watching two paths simultaneously. And Zodiac feels sort of similar to that to me. Would you agree? Like you've got two tracks basically, that you're going down, although at the end of the day, both are kind of doing the same thing. And so the front runner feels similar to me in that way.
I'm not quite sure I understand the example, sure. but I mean, I will say this: Zodiac seems to. It's been a while since I've seen it.
Sure.
Last, but Zodiac. I always sort of chalk that up to Zodiac just having to contain a whole lot of information in one film. Yeah. I mean, the Zodiac killings took place over a long period of time. You're basically seeing it through the eyes of these three guys. So in a way, it does sort of take off on. There's a big long stretch where Downey's not in the movie. It's just right. Gyllenhaal and Ruffalo.
But you could add him as a third prong to this fork, if you will, this trident of storyline.
Yeah.
But all in all, I think the point I'm trying to make is that this is not a film that you're seeing through one particular point of view, but rather through several. I could have picked anything, but Zodiac just kind of fit the bill and it was fresh on my mind.
Yeah.
But here's the difference, right? So with Zodiac, I kind of would say that if there are three prongs, there's actually kind of a fourth. And that fourth is the viewer. We are sort of the fourth participant in this hunt, right? Where we're seeing all the clues. We're not just seeing what one character is seeing, we're seeing it all. And we're trying to piece it all together. So we're sort of this unbiased fourth viewer, or this fourth investigator, if you will, and that's sort of our thing. And yet we're still completely invested in each of these characters as characters, right? Like what's happening to Robert Downey Jr., what's happening to Jay Gyllenhaal, what's happening to Mark Ruffalo. Yep. We're very invested in these things. With the front runner, it takes a very different approach. And I would compare this to, like, if you were thinking about writing an essay in your English class. Zodiac is informational. Sure. We're uncovering information, and yet it's also a narrative. Like we're being told a story and we're investing in that story. Whereas the front runner, we are not necessarily being told a story because there's not a point of view and there's not a definitive declaration at the end, right? Like there's not here's what we're thinking. Here's what what the filmmakers are trying to tell us. And so in that way, it's also not a persuasive essay because you could say the film is bringing up issues of the film is bringing up issues of, should the media be involved in the personal lives of a political figure? And if so, how far should they go? What is the imaginary line that they shouldn't cross? Should they be grilling the politician's wife? Should they be grilling their children? How far is too far? But the film, the frontrunner, is not actually interested in giving us a definitive point of view on that. It is not like Jason Reitman is telling us, here's what I think. You should not cross this line, or this is not okay. There's no such declaration made. And because there's no point of view character, it's also not a narrative. So what that kind of leaves you with is just an informational essay. And if it's just informational, then there's nothing to really grab hold of, because it feels like the filmmaker doesn't have a true vision, right? Whereas Zodiac also ends on somewhat of an ambiguous note. I mean, but somewhat. And
by design.
By design. And yet it feels like the filmmakers have a specific thought that they're trying to leave you with, right? And the front runner doesn't seem to have that. So it's not a great comparison between the two movies, other than to say the front runner is only informational. Zodiac is certainly giving you information, but it's feeding that through the lens of a narrative. It's feeding that through a story about a person, or in this case, 3 people, and feeding those all into this, feeding all of that through this. Sorry, y'all. Looks like my power just went out, but that can't be possible because my computer's still working.
Oh, snap.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Weird. Okay. So, my router's still going, so maybe my light just died. Okay. Anyway, sorry, that was weird.
I'm paranoid
You'll
now.
see that on the in a few minutes when you edit this. But all that to say, I feel like Zodiac had a story that they were trying to tell, and the front runner doesn't have a definitive story. It doesn't have a definitive statement. It doesn't have a definitive vision. It is in essence a informational piece that, because it doesn't have an anchor character, like had we seen all of this through Gary Hart's eyes, we could invest in him as a character. We could feel for him as a character. We could root for him or not as a character. And then at the end, you make a statement and say, what the media did to this man is inexcusable and inappropriate. And because you, the filmmaker, make that statement, it makes me, the viewer, think. But they didn't do that, right? They kind of left it ambiguous, and they kind of left it up to you. Like, well, do you think they went too far? Do you think they were supposed to be doing that? But if you don't give me anything to latch onto, then I don't care. Yeah. And so that's sort of what it boils down to. And so I'll wrap it up with these 2 things. The first is an example from the film. In the film, we get to see the moment that Gary Hart meets the woman that he will cheat on his wife with. The way that scene is shot, the camera is situated between, so the camera is looking at Hugh Jackman. Mm-hmm. The woman comes into the room behind the camera, so completely off screen, and we're just watching him watch her with his eyes. Yeah. And then it's clear she sits down because his eyes drop, right? And he's on a couch, so it's kind of the other side of the couch. Okay. And so she sits down, and he starts to talk to her, and he, for the first time, is smiling and kind of flirting and whatever, but we never see her. In this scene, we never see her. And the second thing that they do is they drop the audio out. So we never hear him flirt. We only see his body language change. Okay. So what this does is we're not privy to the conversation they have. We don't know what she looks like. So if we saw her in the next scene, we wouldn't know. And all it does is serve to distance us from his active decision to ruin his marriage and his campaign. Had we seen her coming, had we seen, that he was previously faithful to his wife or not, or had we seen, that they had a loving marriage and that she was, worthy of his respect and blah, 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 then we could have seen this coming, and then we could have said, oh no, Gary, don't do it. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then when he does it, then we have that moment of, oh, come on, Gary. Right. But we don't get to have that moment because we don't see her. We don't hear what they talk about, and we don't see, I know it sounds weird, but we don't see the affair. Yeah. So for us, we're detached as anybody else. And so there's not a point of view character for us to latch onto. So this film has a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes. I would need to double check, but that may be one of Jason Reitman's lowest ranked on Rotten Tomatoes. I didn't do the homework on that.
I'll check it out.
But Jason Reitman's usually fairly reliable. And what I found this film was lacking was that point of view character. And I really wish this was a tour de force for Hugh Jackman. I think he knows what he wants to do. He just never had the time to do it. And so I think that this is an example of when a script or when a filmmaker fails a leading man, because we can't root for Hugh Jackman's character and we can't make a clear decision on the morality of the media, which is what they're trying to get us to think about. But we can't make that call because we don't have all the information, and the information we do have is given to us sort of free of emotional trappings, which is how you persuade an audience to think. So compare this to something like The Green Book, where you're going to create thoughtful dialogue in your audience by showing them emotion and presenting them with something that they may not think is an issue or may not be aware of, or even The Hate You Give, which I recently reviewed too. Here's an issue. We're going to dress it up in emotional trappings so you can't deny the issue no matter what side of the fence you're on politically. You have to say this is an issue because this girl is going through it emotionally, and as a human I relate to the emotion, and that's the way that a good film, a memorable, timeless, great film is made, and this unfortunately doesn't have it. So I'm going to give this 2 stars. I really wish it was better. I think Hugh Jackman deserved better, and I think Jason Reitman is capable of better. So I don't know if it's the fact that, the writers failed here or what it is. That's probably it. But I felt detached, and I felt like there was ample opportunity to get me invested and allow me to see things through Gary's eyes, and I was never given the opportunity.
Just to put a cap on that. Sorry, did you have more?
No, that's it.
Just to put a cap on this, you mentioned Jason Reitman being capable of more. His highest. Okay, so in terms of as a director, so this is not his worst rated film.
Wow, okay.
He has 2 others. One I've heard of, one I have not. I have not heard of Men, Women, and Children. That has a 32 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Labor Day has a 34. The one with Josh Brolin and Kate Winslet.
Yeah.
So there's that one, of course. But you're referring in terms of his success, of course, to movies like Tully, also from this year, 86%. You've got Young Adult, which I liked, 81% from 2011. You got Up in the Air, 91%. You have
brilliant movie.
You got Juno, which is at 94. Juno's very popular.
Great movie.
And then my personal favorite, Thank You for Smoking.
Thank You for Smoking. Yeah.
86%.
Great movie.
Yeah.
So he's certainly capable of more, and he's capable. I mean, just look at Up in the Air, right? Where we see everything through George Clooney's perspective. We're given ample opportunity to get in his head, know what his objectives are, what his goals are, what are his life dreams, and his flaws, and we get to watch him make decisions that he should or should not make, and we get to feel those with him. Here we don't get that opportunity, and that's the meat that it's missing.
Yeah. Okay then. Well,
so disappointing.
Yeah, he's still growing. It's
sure.
I always sort of feel better sometimes when directors don't have awesome movies back to back to back, because then you just go, okay, well, cool.
Right.
All right,
dude. Yeah.
That's it. We're about in an hour. That's the HooperCast Movie Hour, everybody.
Yeah.
Check us out next week. Have a good weekend. Get out there, see some good movies. We'll see you back here next week. Bye, Dustin.
Sounds good. Bye, Hoopa.